Think of a conversation you're avoiding, or one you have recently had that left some sort of residue. And there's been a mild unsettledness that followed you through the rest of the day that you found yourself revisiting in quiet moments. You're adjusting and revising and preparing different versions of what you might have said, should have said, may yet need to say. And most people live in a constant low-level management of their relational world, and they're tracking how they are perceived, they're adjusting what they reveal, they're protecting certain interior territories that feel too tender to expose or too complicated to explain or simply too uncertain to offer to another person's judgment. This isn't dishonesty in most cases. It is simply the framework of a system that has learned through long experience that certain things are safer kept interior, that the cost of full expression in some directions is higher than the cost of silence. And this becomes so habitual that most people have largely forgotten they are doing it. They're not deciding in each conversation what to withhold. The withholding has become structural. It is the shape the system has learned to take. And so what I want to speak about is what a conversation becomes when this structure begins to release. And the first thing that changes is how the other person arrives. So when you are managing, when there is a part of the system occupied with how you're being received, what impression is forming, and what needs to be protected, the other person cannot fully land. A part of your attention is turned inward and is monitoring. The contact available to them is then only partial. They're meeting something, but they're meeting the managed version of something. The real contact is happening at a slight remove. And when the managing genuinely drops away, and this is not a decision, and it's not an act of will, and it's not the result of telling yourself to be more open, the other person then arrives completely. Their face, the quality of their attention, the thing they are carrying that has nothing to do with this conversation, but that is present in the set of their shoulders, in the way their breath is moving, in the slightly effortful quality of their smile, the emotional weather they carry without knowing they are carrying it. And you receive all of this. And it's not through any sort of analysis, it's through the direct response of a system that is actually present to what is happening. And without structure carried within yourself, you begin to unstructure the very space you are both in. And this happens without intention. It happens without energetic manipulation and without any conscious effort. What falls away is simply what has always made conversations slightly effortful. The tension in your voice, the subtle need for validation, the judgment dissolved from your gaze. And people rarely understand why they feel different in your presence, only that they do. And difficult conversations become different because the thing that made them difficult has changed. The difficulty in most hard conversations is not the content. The content which is maybe the disagreement, the hurt, the thing that needs to be said, is bearable. What makes the conversation difficult is the structure or the framework of protection that has to be navigated while the content is being addressed. So it's the maintaining of positions and the guarding of the image. It's the management of how much to say and when and in what tone. And so when the protective structure releases, when there is genuinely nothing being held, the conversation can simply be about what it is about. You can say the true thing. And by that, I don't mean the blunt thing, the thing wielded without care. What emerges from openness is almost always more measured than what is said from behind defenses, because what is said from openness is feeling its way toward contact instead than towards safety. You only say what emerges naturally from the silence without any sort of qualification or excess. You speak when silence would distort the moment. And you pause when speech would override what is already complete. And so then the voice lands differently when it is coming from nowhere defended. And the other person can feel this. Something in them relaxes or is disturbed if disturbance is what honesty requires. But they are meeting something real, and the quality of contact changes. And there's also a physical reality to this that is worth naming. When a difficult conversation approaches, when you know it is coming, even before a word is spoken, the body, the nervous system, the energetic system, your field, consciousness responds. In a system that has not opened, the response is bracing. The chest narrows, the breath shortens, there is a gathering in the throat, a slight tightening that changes the quality of the voice before speech begins. The hands may close slightly. This is armoring. This is preparation. And from inside that armoring, the conversation is conducted, which means every word, every response is coming through a structure that is partially occupied with maintaining the armor itself. So when the deeper holdings have genuinely released, what happens in the body and in the whole system as the difficult moment approaches is different. There may still be sensation, a spreading of warmth across the chest or a quickening in the chest or energy gathering there or somewhere else in the body, but the body and the system does not close. The system remains permeable. And from that permeability, something becomes possible that is almost impossible from behind armor. You can feel what is actually being asked of this moment, and you can respond to what is real rather than the version of reality your protective structure has constructed. And silence becomes available. In managed conversation, silence is uncomfortable because it creates an uncontrolled space. Anything could arrive. Your own unmanaged feelings could surface before you have decided whether they should. The other person can say something that would require a response you have not prepared. So what happens then is that silence is filled quickly and automatically. But when there is nothing to manage, silence becomes a natural part of the conversation. It's a place where what has been said can be received rather than immediately processed, where you can feel into what is true before speaking rather than speaking to figure out what is true. And the conversation slows the way a river slows into depth. It's not losing momentum, but gaining it. And the movement becomes more purposeful as it finds its floor. Each thing said can actually land. And the other person can feel that what they have said was received before a response was formed. And this quality of being actually received rather than processed is something most people have rarely experienced in conversation. Without the subtle management running beneath most human interaction, the conversation unfolds according to its own intelligence, each thing arising from what the situation actually requires rather than from a script of how this kind of conversation should go. And what does it feel like from inside to speaking without holding? There's a quality of not knowing what you're going to say until you say it, which for many sounds alarming, and in a managed system, it would be. But the knowing is coming from somewhere real, from the actual felt sense of what is true in this moment with this person, rather than from the prepared version of what you decided in advance was safe to say. And the strange thing is that this kind of speech is far more precise. It finds the exact word because the exact word is the one that matches what is actually present, not the word that most closely approximates what you had prepared. And after a conversation like this, even a genuinely difficult one, even one where the difficult thing needed to be said, there is no residue. Because what was said was what was true. The conversation leaves nothing behind. It passes through completely. And this quality of conversation is what becomes ordinary when the system opens. It becomes simply how you speak and how you listen and how you meet the person in front of you. Just here. Just this. Just what is actually true.